So, I wanted to make this video. I never got the idea to make a video like this. I don't know why, but it kind of dawned on me, and I think I should. Um, so, when I was a boy, I was raised in a church from the time I was born. Like, I was even going to church in my mom's womb. Like, I was from, like, day one. And until I was about 11, my parents, they quit going to church and stuff, and, you know, the relationship got really rocky, and they divorced. I was about 11, and started getting out of hand. Of course, my mom and my dad got in a court battle, you know, and I was ripped back and forth, and they were doing share parenting for a while, and eventually I just started living with my mom all the time. Well, my mom couldn't control me. I was out and about with my friends every night, you know, disregarding everything she said. Got on probation, you know, smoking weed, you know, sleeping around with the girls, doing all kinds of stuff. Just drinking whatever, you know, anything, fighting people, like I was up all night all the time, falling asleep in class every day. This is probably when I was 13, 14. And then, what I feel like when God started calling me when I was a boy was, I was at my friend's house, and we were all smoking weed, and it was like a bunch of us, and we were all like playing loud music and stuff, and we were all smoking weed and hanging out, and like we were smoking out this like huge bong thing, or not a bong, but like this huge like steamroller thing or whatever, and like I was like really high, and I used to smoke so much weed, and like I would never get like anxiety, or like I could just smoke whatever and do whatever drug and I would be fine. And like I was really high sitting on the floor, and the room, like I don't know, I was smoking a bunch of weed, and it kind of like made the room like kind of like I don't want to say spinning like a drunk feeling would give you, like a spinning, but it was more like just kind of like this wavy, like, I don't know, I really can't explain it, just kind of where everything's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But it wasn't like my vision was spinning, it was just kind of like this, like, and then it just kind of like, I was just sitting there, and then just out of nowhere, it just, and then it just stopped. Like, completely stopped. And like it's almost like my vision was like all murky and like fuzzy, and it just like got completely like normal, and like the spinning kind of stuff stopped, and all of a sudden, like, it's not like I heard a voice in my head, but it was like my conscience like being like, this is all real, like all this exists, like why is all this even here, like why is there life, like why is there life going on, like what is all, like it sounds like corny and like weird, but like it was just like woo woo, like I'm all high and stuff, just whatever, and then all of a sudden it just stops. And then right when it like I just realized, like, it just hit me like a ton of bricks, like all this is happening and it doesn't have to be happening. And like just all this exists and it doesn't have to exist, like everything, like, and it just like blew like it, and then all of a sudden, like after like 2 seconds later, then all of a sudden like the high started kicking in again, and like I was like high or whatever again, and I was having like my heart was beating so fast, and I had a panic attack from it, like I don't know why, because it was like so like it just got my attention, like it was so strange. And of course I didn't realize it back then, you know, and I was so like caught on this thought of like, oh man, like, you know, everything's real, and like, You know, back then I didn't realize that was God doing that to me. But I just was kind of like, whoa, you know, I started questioning everything, and like, I like started like studying evolution and like all that stuff, and like got into all that, and like studying, like going and like looking at all these theologians, like the best arguments against God and like all that, like, and still at this point I'm still smoking and drinking and all that stuff, and I eventually at some point when I was like 15 or 16, I was still drinking and doing all that stuff, but I walked in my room. I was on probation. I ended up getting on probation because I got caught with weed or something. And I had this New Testament Bible. This little black, it was like a military version. And I was reading it. And I was like, it just like, it's almost like my heart dropped. And I was like, is this even real? Like, is this just made up? Because I was like, I think I was like reading like one of the Gospels, and Mark or something, Mark or Luke or something. And I was like reading it, and it was like saying something about the apostles. I was like, is this even real? And it bothered me really bad. And then I like started going on the internet and researching like why Jesus is real. And I remember specifically, I went on the internet and I searched why the Bible doesn't contradict itself. And I put that in on Google to like hear, you know, why it doesn't contradict itself, to see, you know. But when that happened, there was articles that also popped up that why it does contradict itself, supposedly. And like, you know, on Google there's like the blue like heading, and then it has like it just shows you like a little part of the paragraph, like and it just says, well, it said something, and I like my heart dropped, and I was like, and I didn't want to face the reality of it not being real because I was so scared of what was real, and I just like, it was what I was always raised with, and like, and at this point, like, I never was even praying when I went to bed. Like, I was like in that part of my life to where I just didn't even think of the thought of God or why any of this was happening, and I was like, I was just so scared, and I just did tons of research and on all the internet and looked up all this stuff, and I just was praying every night, like, God, if you're there, like, please show yourself, like, what's going on. You know, of course, back then, like, at this point, I didn't know why God did that to me at my friend's house when I was smoking weed. And, I started watching this pastor and, online, and he helped me clean my life up a lot. And, before I started watching him, though, I was at my friend's house one night, and we were, like, drinking, and I was watching TV, and we were drinking and stuff. Now, I wasn't, like, drunk, but I was, like, I was alright, like, feeling there or whatever. And I just felt so guilty. And I walked home in the cold. I was like, alright, guys, I'll see you later. Like, I wasn't interested. I walked home across town in the cold and went to my house. My mom was in bed. It was really quiet in the house. Like, all you did was hear the clock ticking, like it was dead silent. I went in my bedroom, and I just fell on my knees and rested my arms over the bed, and I was just asked God to please forgive me and save me. And I was like almost crying at this point. And that's when I feel like I really got saved. But I called upon Christ to save me, and after that, I just drew this interest where there was always something inside of me calling to preach His word, and but what like weirder stuff even happened. So about this time, I was about 17 years old, and I was reading the Bible and stuff, but I was like going through phases where I was like doing good, and then I was drinking and smoking weed all the time. Like, I was smoking so much weed, and eventually, I started building like an anxiety. Like, every time I would smoke weed, I would get anxiety, like really strong anxiety, like it was like so intense, like where I was just like breathing really heavy and just like walking back and forth, like pacing and stuff, and I just couldn't. But it's almost like I was like forcing myself to smoke it, just because I like wanted to. Like, I felt like I was so bored if I didn't. And another crazy thing God did to me. I was sitting at a fire at my friend's house, and I was drinking, I was smoking, like I was drinking and smoking a bunch of weed, so I was really messed up. And he had a fire in his front driveway, like he had this fire pit, like in this barrel in his front driveway, and all my friends, they were like all circled around me. And they were like all high and drunk too. And they were like carrying on and laughing and whatever, and music was playing. So when the first thing happened to me, I was like 14. And then when the second thing happened to me, I was 17. And I'm sitting around this fire, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I was looking at the fire pit, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I just felt this presence, like really strong. And it, like, I can't like explain it. Like, it hit me out of nowhere, and then I just started bawling. Like, it was so overwhelming. Like, I couldn't stop crying. Like I can't, when I say I couldn't stop crying, like I couldn't stop, like, like it was like so intense to where tears were just like just falling down. Like, I could not stop like making that face. Like, you know when people go like hide their face when they're crying, like that face, like I just could not stop. Like, my muscles like on my face were like locked, and I was just bawling because I like felt this presence like on me, and it was so strong. And all of a sudden it just kind of like lifted. And I was just like, wow. Like, I knew it was him. And all my friends, they were like, "Are you good, man? Are you good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude." I had my friend take me home that night. And I was just staring in the window the whole time on the way home. And he's like, "You sure you're good?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I was thinking about it so hard. And I was like, wow, like he is real. And I always made a promise to myself to never forget what he did to me that night. And trust me, I'm going to get to more things of what he's done similar to this in my life. But I like made a promise, like a vow to myself, that I was never going to let myself think that it was like it was all in my mind or something, or I was drunk. Like, I'm not bragging or anything like that, but I have plenty of experience smoking marijuana, drinking. Like, I've been doing it for years. Like, I'm currently not doing it, but I was smoking, drink so much, like so much. Like, I know it wasn't like I was just high or something and I got emotional or nothing. Like, this wasn't me. This wasn't thoughts like leading me to it, to where I started getting emotional. Like, this was just out of nowhere, and his presence just hit me. And it lasted probably like 10 seconds, I'm guessing. Well, nothing, I started getting stronger in his word, and I started doing really good, and of course I was still making mistakes on the side. But I notice now every time I smoke weed, I get really bad anxiety. Like, really bad. Like, I can't even smoke it anymore. Like, it's so, like, I just start thinking about God and stuff, and I just can't do it. Like, it's almost like because I remember praying to him and asking him to cut it out of my life. And he did. And he works in weird ways like that, and I notice every time when I drink now, I get really tired. Like, alcohol doesn't give me anxiety, but it gets me really tired, and I feel like kind of sick. Like, just like this, like like the feeling like you kind of like haven't ate all day, like, and you're that kind of sick, like that's how it makes me feel. And I get headaches and like, and I feel really guilty all the time. And when I go to bed at night, I roll around, you know, because it is, like, I just know it's not right, and I can't, like, pray to God, like, being drunk, like, I feel like he doesn't even hear me. But, anyway, I was at a Halloween party, you know, in the wrong place, you know, doing the wrong things again. I was at a Halloween party this past Halloween. This was, like, 4 months ago, or something. So it's January something now, so about 3.5 months ago, something like that. And, I was sitting there, and I was drinking. I wasn't really that drunk. Like, I really wasn't. I probably had, like, 3 beers or something. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I don't know where, I think of this verse in Psalms. And it goes as something like, it says, this isn't word for word, but it's really close. It says, when I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. And when I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. Like, talking about God being there with them all the time. And that verse, like, sunk in really deep out of nowhere, and I just started bawling again, like that feeling, like, came on me, like, at that party that I was at when I was 17. And I'm 21 now, so this was when I was 21. Well, I am 21 now, but this is, like, right after I turned 21. And I was just bawling for, like, it was longer this time, it was, like, the feeling of him lasted for, like, 10 seconds, or maybe even less than that, but, like, just the aftershock of, like, wow, that just happened, like, he just did that to me again. Like, I was crying for probably, like, 10 minutes. Like, it was that crazy. Like, that's, maybe not 10 minutes, maybe, like, 7 minutes or something, whatever. And then there was these girls, like, kind of, like, talking back and forth, looking over at me and stuff, and, well, then there was another thing. There's 2 other things that happened since then, and I'm just taking note of them. First thing, so this is right when I started my new job at this gas station. This was, let me think, October. This was in probably late November, mid-November, late November. No, this is like mid-November. This guy came in my work when I was working behind that counter at this gas station. He hands me a gospel tract over the counter. And he says, hey, will you read this? I go, yeah, man. I was like, I'm already saved, though. And he's like, oh, amen. Like, he said amen. Like, his back was turned to me walking out the door at this time. You know, so I put it in my wallet to give to somebody else. Well, actually, he must have gave me 2 on accident. Like, they were, like, stuck together, and I pulled the other one out, and then the girl I was working next to, she kind of looked at me like, do you know that guy or something? Like, I was like, oh, no. But I gave her the other one, because I went to go put it in my wallet and fold it, and I noticed there was 2 of them kind of, like, stuck together, and these are, like, the book ones that kind of, like, have all the pages, and they're, like, all in rectangle shape. Yeah, I was like, yeah, you should read it. Like, I was walking out of work that day, and I'm like, you should read that. Like, he knows what he's talking about. And she kind of just looked at me like, all right. Like, and this is, like, the second day I met her, like, at work. So, like, at this point, I don't care, like, what people think of me like that, about God and stuff. But, and then 2 days later, I'm out front at my job, in the parking lot, and I'm doing the trash, and this old black guy, like this ex-Marine, like this really old, nice, sweet black guy, he pulled in, and he's like, hey, how you doing? He's pumping his gas or whatever. I'm like, oh, good, and somehow we got on the subject of addiction. I can't remember what all led up to the conversation, but he ended up telling me, he pointed up to the sky and looked up, and he said, you know, God got me here. And I reached in my wallet when he was about to leave, like he was done finishing his gas, and I handed him the gospel tract. And I was like, will you read this for me? And he pointed at me like this, and he's like, I knew I was supposed to bump into you today. And he just got in his car and left. So that happened, and one of the craziest things that God ever did to me was, this was like a month ago, in December, and this was like right before Christmas. I saw this Bible verse, in Matthew, and it bothered me really bad, and I'm like, it was when Jesus said, if you will enter into life, keep the commandments, and like, which I'll explain to why it doesn't mean that, like it means that, but it doesn't mean it like the context, like that's how you go to heaven, and I'll explain that probably in another video or the end of this video. But anyway, I read that verse, and I was like, am I even saved, Lord? And like, it was bothering me really bad, and I was praying a lot behind the counter. Like, nobody was in there in the gas station at the time, and I was praying a lot behind the counter, and I put my hands down on the counter, and I looked out the window. I was like, am I even saved? Like, really loud, like. And 10 minutes later, I'm working on our computer screen, we have like all the pumps at the bottom of the screen. Like, there's like 14 pumps, and there's on the keyboard out at the pumps, there's like this little help button. It has a little yellow line on it. Like, it's really small and hid. Like, nobody ever presses it. Like, it's like once every 2 weeks or once a month. Like, nobody ever presses it. Ever since I've worked there, I've seen someone press it like 3 times, and I've worked there like 3 months. So it's like people never ever press it. Like, it's not easy to see. And I asked that, and about 10 minutes later, the girl, I work with this girl named Melissa. It's a different girl, and she told me, she was standing there. I was like, hey, can you grab this register, because somebody pressed that help button, and it makes this really obnoxious loud noise. And I was like, hey, I gotta get this guy out the pump. Will you, watch the register or whatever? And she grabbed the register so she could take care of the customers in line. And I threw my hoodie on or whatever, and I run out to the pump 12. It's all the way across the parking lot. Ran to it. And this guy sitting there real patient. He's like, hey man, I think something with my gas pump quit working. Or something. And what happened was, if you take too long at the pump, your gas times out. Like, the gas pump times out, so you gotta reset it. I was like, oh yeah, man, your gas pump timed out or whatever. And he was like really patient, kind. Like, he was so kind. Like, and I looked over, and to my left, and right on this little thing that holds these cards, right on the pump, there was this little card. And remember, I'm stressing out from this verse I read in Matthew. And I asked God like 10 minutes earlier to pray to me, or I prayed to him and asked him like to show me a sign or something. I was like, show me if I'm saved. Like, I remember praying that to him. And 10 minutes later, go out, look at this card, and it says Philippians 4:6. It says, I believe it's Philippians 4:6, 4:6 or 4:3, I can't remember. And it says, and of course it was like the New Age Bibles. It wasn't like an old King James. It wasn't like a King James, but it was like one of these new Bibles. I don't know which one it's from. And it said, it was like a card, like for like a business, it almost looked like. And it said, be not anxious about anything, but in supplication and prayer and thanksgiving make your requests known unto God. And I knew, like, I was just like, wow. Like, I mean, most people be like, oh, that was a coincidence. Well, I mean, you can believe whatever you want. I mean, he'll always leave you. Like, when I felt God on me, like, I could just think, oh, well, that was just me being too emotional, or maybe that was just my hormones in my brain, pump chemicals, or whatever caused me to do that. But he always leaves you kind of like, not second guessing it, but more like he just kind of leaves like the option, hey, you can believe this was actually me, or you can think it was a coincidence. And I noticed, even that day when I was sitting at my friend's house smoking weed, on the floor, like I now know, I realize now that he's been calling me my whole life. And my life has been completely transformed. I was always that kid in high school that argued with my science teacher about evolution, and I didn't care what anybody thought. And of course they all said I was stupid, and everybody agreed with the teacher, because he was the teacher, and he's like, oh, I've seen the facts and all that, and I did respect him because he let me talk in his class, but I just noticed God's been calling me. He's been showing me a lot of things, and he'll do for you too. In Jeremiah it says, this ain't word for word, but it's really close. It says, call upon me, and I will show you great and mighty things which thou knowest not. And that verse kind of stuck out at me. He'll do great things for you. I don't even question, I've cut through all those weeds of like, what religion's right, and, is there actually God? And I cut through all those weeds, and I just see him now. He's so clear, because I followed him with a genuine heart. And he really showed himself to me. I'm just a normal kid, I'm not trying to get likes or nothing like that. I'm just this normal 21-year-old kid in Ohio. Went to high school, was on the wrestling team. Just a normal person. I work at a gas station. He'll do great things for you in your life. You just have to ask him and read his word. And he's shown me so many things. So many things. Have a good day.